The closest thing to Michael Jordan today has Michael Jordan-like problems all of a sudden. It's Jordan-like in every way. And I don't think that's a ridiculous exaggeration. Not only is it Jordan-like in every way, because you have to think of the time of Michael Jordan. This is pre-social media. And I would contend that it would be tough for Michael Jordan. He would survive as a basketball player. He survived as a basketball player anyhow. But with the problems that he had off the court, gambling problems, people getting murdered and stuff, Mike disappearing for a little while to allegedly play baseball. So it would be tough for him not to be eaten alive publicly, a modern-day Michael Jordan. Well, today's Japanese version of the Michael Jordan is in a bizarre, straight from Netflix documentary, like right away. It's just living. It's a living documentary right now, and it sounds like a cover-up. I don't even think it's handled very well. It feels like such a cover-up. It's kind of disgusting. It's a weird story that is unfolding. It is all over the news. It takes so many twists that it's really hard for the average person to follow. Because I do think if you were to sit down with a decent glass of wine, not Chardonnay, of course, and watch this documentary, it would be fascinating. Because one dude, I think, I could be wrong, but one person is absolutely not just getting thrown under a bus. The bus just keeps running over him. Like, he just backs up and runs over him again. Someday this dude's going to talk, I think. All right, so here, I'll do the best I can to explain this in short terms, and then we can see if this is really Jordan-like, because he is that to baseball. He is. It is Shohei Ohtani, Japanese baseball player for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and his interpreter, among others. Now, you're going to think, well, Jeff, how weird can this really get? Why would we care that much? It is bizarre, and it doesn't add up. Somebody gets an F in public relations, at best. I mean, you guys are all over the map. So it doesn't add up. It really is a documentary in the making. So Shohei Ohtani is the Michael Jordan of baseball. He is involved in a Jordan-like scandal now, which makes it amazing to sit back and watch. You can say, who do you want to believe? Do you want to believe the Michael Jordan of baseball is being protected? Sounds like it on the front end. It wouldn't be that surprising on the front end. And then there's this, I think in the end, I do think there is a social and political takeaway to all of this. I do. I do think there's kind of a moral to the story here that we can all appreciate. I'm curious if you're going to agree with that. But first of all, he has an amazing contract, unlike anything probably in sports history. Shohei Ohtani signed a deal with the Dodgers. He's the Jordan of baseball. There's not been a player like him in our lifetime. He is instant money. He delivers. He is Jordan-like in the things that he can do. There's no denying the guy's freakish talent in every way. There's no denying that he's probably a smart investment. I'm not going to say he's going to save baseball, but he's going to take it to a different plateau. He really is. Jordan and these guys came along. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird out of the NCAA Final Four, which would have been, 79, which was the highest-rated final championship game of all time. They stepped into the NBA when the NBA was slow and dying. The NBA couldn't even get off of cable TV then, at that time. They took the NBA out of that place, made it cool, made it marketable, made it a big ticket. Jordan then took it to the next level. Like, he took it to the stratosphere. Shohei Ohtani is taking the sport and carrying it on his back in a lot of ways and carrying it around the world in a lot of ways. He's everything to baseball, which means if you want to find a conspiracy here, you can kind of see it. Baseball can't afford this guy to go away. But I'm not sure. Somewhere out there, someone's going to scream Pete Rose's name any minute. Any minute. Pete Rose is going to get involved in this story somehow, as an example. Okay, so his interpreter and best friend and a guy who is well known in baseball because he is at his side. I mean, talking about the most famous player in the game around the world. And his interpreter is by his side all the time. And his interpreter, from what's reported now, is his best friend. Yeah, well, not anymore. And this dude is, I'm telling you, the bus is running over him. So the accusation is this, that he makes a few $1 million right now. His contracts, Shohei Ohtani, makes like $5 million a year now, which is nothing for his star power. But then he's got 10, 12, 15 million a year for like 20 straight years. They back-ended almost his entire contract is back-ended to the point where he's past 45 and above. I'm not quite sure. I don't know the logic, the finance, why they would do it that way, but they did. They back-ended this man's contract where he's going to be, probably making $60 million a year as a 60-year-old. So he's, it's a $600 million contract over the life of the deal, and he might get another one. So here's the way it's reported now. It's talked about it. This is good reporting. This is good work by ESPN. I mean, this is where I think the times are different, that I'm not sure he's going to get a pass like Jordan got a pass. Shohei Ohtani's longtime interpreter has been fired after being accused of theft, said to be the magnitude of millions of dollars, according to the Los Angeles Times. His legal team, Ohtani's legal team, claims that he was allegedly making illegal bets with a bookmaker named Matthew Boyer, who is currently under federal investigation. This sounds Jordan-like, doesn't it? And so this guy, his interpreter, was betting close to $5 million with this illegal bookmaker. For the record, California is one of the few places as backwards as the state of Texas when it comes to legalized gambling. It's not legal there, which is a whole nother discussion by itself. I mean, it really should be. This is what you get into when you make stuff illegal. But he's been making these bets. Maybe it's him. Allegedly, the interpreter's been making these bets and upwards of $5 million. The feds are investigating. That's why, by the way, taxpayers, gambling should be legal. That way everything is above board. See? So you don't have shady characters when you make it legal. So he's betting $5 million. He owes $5 million. Ohtani, miraculously, money is disappearing from his account. He then, or somebody for him then says, well, he was just covering for his buddy. Oh, okay. The money is leaving his account and going directly to this guy, this shady character, covering up $5 million. So he paid off. The story right now is he paid off $4.5 million in gambling debt for his interpreter. And then, of course, they've screwed that up completely. An ESPN report shed more light on the situation behind the scenes. Ohtani's camp reportedly presented Missouri for an interview Tuesday in Korea, where he claimed the slugger agreed to pay off $4.5 million in gambling debt for him last year. Missouri, this is the interpreter, claimed he placed bets via DraftKings before meeting Boyer, whom he said he believed to be a legal bookmaker. Oh, okay. Like they don't know what's going on? They have no clue? You have no idea that he was illegal with that shady guy said, call me up. He says, quote, this is the interpreter now. Oh, I'm terrible at gambling. I'm never going to do it again. I've never won any money. I mean, I dug a hole for myself, and I kept getting bigger, and I had to bet bigger to get out of it, and I just kept losing. It had like this snowball effect, he says. Ohtani was unhappy upon learning about the debt, but agreed to make payments to Boyer himself, rather than giving the money to his interpreter. Mm-hmm. Does that sound practical to you, really? Is that really what you would do? Who have you been betting with? Well, this guy said he worked for DraftKings, but he's got like a trench coat on, and I meet him by the highway every week. Okay, well, let me call him up. Says the most famous baseball player on the planet, the most famous baseball player of the past 30 years. He's just going to call him up and say, hey, what do I owe you? My interpreter is just really bad at this stuff. What do we, like $100 or so? Oh, $5 million. I'll wire it to you. Who does that? The payment was supposed to be a loan. The interpreter made between $300,000 and $500,000 working for Ohtani. However, upon being asked about this account, Ohtani's camp reportedly disavowed Missouri. He told ESPN the next day that Ohtani had no knowledge of his gambling debt and did not make the transfer. Yeah, well, the problem is ESPN did the good work and said, well, why are you signing off on these transfers? Why were you the one? Why was this money leaving your account directly, sir? Okay, so he makes an endorsement, something like $70 million a year in endorsements. So the guy is a rock star. Okay, it's hard to believe the story, but if the interpreter is going to be the fall guy, which sounds like he is, you can start to ask a bunch of questions because it didn't work. I mean, if they thought they could, it just doesn't add up to me. It doesn't. One, the guy's answer is, I don't know how to bet, but I'm going to keep betting $5 million. I don't even like it, but I'm going to bet $5 million. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to bet $5 million. Really? That seems a little sketchy. Then he thinks the guy works for DraftKings. Surely he's not that clueless. I'm pretty sure DraftKings is not somebody showing up saying, I'll meet you at the underpass. It's hard to believe the man is that clueless. And then it's a little tough to believe that the money would go straight from the most famous baseball player on the planet, one of the most famous athletes in the world, that it would go straight from his account to this Boyer guy, and everyone is still confused thinking he works for DraftKings. Really? You guys aren't that dumb, and you're not that naive. Not at all. And then he says, it was a loan to me to pay back. Oh, never mind. He knew nothing about it. Well, if you knew nothing about it, why is the money leaving his account signed off by him? It's a bad look. It's a really bad look, and it's Jordan-like. It is. Do I think baseball would cover for him? Absolutely. Everyone in his path would cover for him. The sport doesn't want him and can't, to be honest with you, can't afford for this guy to get in trouble. But you know where this is going. You know it. What happens if somehow, some way, that the bets were connected to the sport that he's in? Then what? What do you do? It's not legal. You can say, well, Jeff, it's legal now. Not the way these dudes operate. It's not in California. He's placing bets with some shady guy who's now under investigation by the feds. Now, that's not a great group to get in bed with, and they're going to talk. So if the spin right now is, the Dodgers have got to be freaking out. Baseball has to be freaking out. This network has to be freaking out. The advertisers have to be freaking out. This is, if you lose him, you lose Jordan. Okay. You can keep trying to make up these stories. What happens if and when he's the one betting? Then what? What do you do? What do you do? Just want to point out, the NFL, just this last summer, kicked 3 players from the Indianapolis Colts out for minimum 6 games, and 2 cases out for the entire season for betting $1,000 on a legal betting site. They got kicked out of their sport. What about this? What happens? That screaming sound is Pete Rose. Pete's waving his arms again. He's at a card show waving his arms. Hey, let me back in. I'll make up a story. I'll blame it on someone else. It's a fascinating mess. It's so messed up. Think about the front end of the stories. I'll call them lies, but the stories. Oh, I didn't know anything about. I don't like to bet. I don't really know how to bet. I lost $5 million betting, and my boss and best friend paid him off for me. Oh, my boss and best friend knew nothing about it. Really? That's where we're going. That's how this is playing out. I'm going to bet for the next several days, Shohei Ohtani has no interpreter and says nothing. I bet he doesn't. I bet all of a sudden some good PR people are about to get involved and say, shut thy face right now. Interpreter, how much would you like? And you need to go away for the rest of your life. Goodbye. What happens if it is like Jordan? People started to talk a little bit, but they never told a terrible story. Basketball said, Mike, this is a bad look. People are dying around you, Mike. What happens? Like, how does this one play out? They're off to a bad start. I got to tell you, they're off to a bad start. That interpreter, I mean, if he's telling the truth, he is a real imbecile. But his story is not a good one. It's not off to a good start. The dots do not connect. Your boss makes $60 million a year, and he's just sending money out to what he thinks is DraftKings, but it's some guy named Boyer. Really? No. Mm-mm. What else do you think except he's making the bets? I mean, what else? Which is weird to me. I mean, okay, now, this is one of the many reasons why it should be legalized. This is stupid. This is crazy. It is. You're going to say, well, Jeff, the NFL had a similar problem. Well, the NFL didn't have a shady character problem. The NFL, see, this is when things get sketchy and shady. The black market and the cartels want to influence games. The legalized betting companies want no part of fixing games. When you're going black market is when it is dangerous. This thing we're above board, and we were talking about him making bets in Nevada or any other state outside of California and Texas that is normalized, then it wouldn't be such a sketchy story. It wouldn't involve so many shady characters. But the fact that it's illegal. And to lie and say you thought it was DraftKings. What? DraftKings? This is why it should be legalized, because their business model is completely above board, and their business model and business survival is making sure everyone knows they're above board. That's what's great about legalizing. This is a perfect example of why you don't want it to be illegal. I'm not saying people don't do stupid stuff legally and illegally, but you don't have shady characters being investigated by the feds when it's above board. This guy's now dealing with awful people who could bring them all down. When legalized betting sites, if they're concerned about something, they throw a red flag and call the feds. These guys have done just the opposite. They've been hiding. It sounds like they're lying. All right, 512-834-1027. If you want to reach out on Twitter or X or whatever it's called, it is Jordan-like, right? Remember the days of Michael Jordan. For people that forget, Mike was involved in bad stuff. Mike had bad friends. Mike liked to gamble way too much, and his dad got murdered. And the next thing you know, Mike is trying to hit curveballs for a summer. They're going to tell this guy to go away? That should go over well with the Dodgers. What a great start that is. And by the way, they're playing in Korea right now. Selling like crazy. What happens if the interpreter comes out of hiding? Says, I'm running out of money here. It's all a lie. What happens if the shady dude the feds are after says, man, I'm sorry, I got to talk. It's